My elderly neighbor with dementia kept stealing my packages. When I found out what she was really doing with them, I started ordering extra. Mrs. Chen moved in next door 3 years ago after her husband passed away. Sweet lady, maybe 75, always waved from her garden and brought me homemade dumplings during the holidays. But about 6 months ago, things started getting weird. My Amazon packages began disappearing. At first, I thought it was typical porch pirates, so I started having deliveries sent to my office. But then my neighbor across the street mentioned seeing Mrs. Chen collecting boxes from my doorstep. I was confused. Mrs. Chen had never seemed like the type to steal, and what would a 75-year-old woman want with my protein powder and phone chargers? I decided to install a doorbell camera to figure out what was happening. Mrs. Chen would shuffle over in her slippers, pick up my packages, and carry them back to her house like she was bringing in her own mail. She moved slowly, deliberately, like this was completely normal behavior. I went over to confront her gently. When she answered the door, she smiled brightly and invited me in for tea like nothing had happened. Mrs. Chen, I think you accidentally picked up some of my packages. She looked genuinely confused. Packages? Oh, you must mean the gifts. Come, let me show you. She led me to her living room, and I stopped dead in my tracks. The coffee table was covered with opened Amazon boxes, but instead of my missing items, there were carefully arranged photo albums, old letters, and what looked like children's artwork. My grandchildren sent these, she said proudly, picking up a crayon drawing of a rainbow. This one is from little Emma. She's 7 now, you know. I looked closer at the drawing. It was clearly something a child had made, but it wasn't in any of my recent orders. Mrs. Chen was holding items that definitely hadn't come from Amazon. Mrs. Chen, where did you get these things? From the boxes, of course. Emma and David are so thoughtful, always sending gifts. She gestured to the Amazon packaging scattered around the room. They know drama gets lonely. That's when I realized what was happening. Mrs. Chen was taking my empty Amazon boxes and filling them with her own treasures, pair and old family photos, letters, children's drawings that were probably decades old. In her mind, these weren't stolen packages. They were gifts from her grandchildren. I gently asked. When was the last time you talked to Emma and David? Her face clouded over for a moment. Oh, they're so busy with school and work, but they send packages all the time. She brightened again, holding up an old Christmas card. See, this came just yesterday. My heart broke. I called the number on her emergency contact list, taped inside her front door. A woman answered on the third ring. Is this about Mom? I am David's wife, Lisa. I explained the situation gently. There was a long pause. We moved to Seattle 2 years ago when David got transferred. Mom's condition has been getting worse, but she refuses to leave her house or accept help. We call every week, but her voice broke. We haven't been able to visit since Christmas. Does she have any caregiver support? She fired the last aide 6 months ago, said strangers were trying to steal her things. After I hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, thinking about Mrs. Chen arranging those old photos on her coffee table, believing her grandchildren had sent them fresh from Seattle. That evening, I ordered a few extra items from Amazon. Kid-friendly things like colored pencils, small puzzles, and cheerful socks. Nothing expensive, just things a grandparent might realistically receive. The next morning, I left the package on her doorstep and watched from my window. Mrs. Chen shuffled out, saw the box, and her face lit up like Christmas morning. She carefully carried it inside, and I knew she'd spend the afternoon arranging whatever treasures she believed her grandchildren had sent. I started doing this twice a week, small packages with thoughtful items that would make an elderly woman smile. Sometimes I'd include actual children's books from garage sales or flowers from my garden wrapped in tissue paper. My Amazon delivery driver started giving me strange looks when he'd drop off packages clearly addressed to me, then watch me move them to Mrs. Chen's doorstep, but he never said anything. Last week, Lisa called me back. David and his family were flying out for an unexpected visit because Mrs. Chen had called them happier than she'd been in months, talking about all the wonderful gifts she'd been receiving. I don't know what changed, Lisa said, but she sounds like herself again. When David's family arrived, I watched from my kitchen window as 2 real grandchildren ran up Mrs. Chen's walkway carrying actual presents. The joy on her face was radiant that afternoon.